Welcome to another podcast of the Riffle series. The Riffle, a podcast series brought to you by 10 Leaves. We know your time is valuable. In finance regulatory updates, they're constant, right? But they often lack context. So our job is to give you the ultimate information shortcut. We pull out the critical knowledge from these dense documents so you can be instantly, well informed. Today, we've done a deep dive into the official supervisory roadmap for one of the world's fastest growing financial hubs. We are dissecting a pretty crucial communication from the Dubai Financial Services Authority, the DFSA. It's dated November 28th, 2025. And this letter, it's aimed right at the top senior executive officers and compliance officers. It lays out the DFSA's key supervisory priorities for 2026. Our mission is straightforward. We want to extract the core risks and really identify the three major thematic reviews the DFSA is scheduled for firms in the Dubai International Financial Center, the DIFC. So if you're building a business, managing compliance, or even investing in the region, this is basically the blueprint for regulatory vigilance for the next 12 months.
And that blueprint, right from the very start, it tells us a lot about where the DIFC is right now. The regulator isn't just maintaining the status quo, it's adapting to this phenomenal success. The source itself, it explicitly says these reviews are happening because of the, and I'm quoting here, high levels of growth we continue to see across all sectors.
So this is a good problem to have, in a way.
It is, but it's still a problem that needs managing. And for anyone who doesn't know the DFSA's toolkit, these thematic reviews are their most effective mechanism. They go way beyond the standard annual audit. The whole purpose is to look across the entire landscape at multiple firms to spot these developing systemic risks. And just as importantly, to gather up and share examples of good practice.
Right.
So when a financial center is expanding this fast, the focus naturally shifts. It's not just about counting new licenses anymore. It's about making sure the foundations, the governance, the controls can actually bear the weight of all that growth.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So the DFSA has carved out three core pillars for 2026. Three big thematic reviews. The first is suitability frameworks, then fund platforms, and finally, brokerage oversight. And even though they're distinct, I'm guessing we're going to see a common theme running through them all.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about ensuring internal controls can keep up with the speed of commercial ambition.
All right, so let's start with the first pillar, suitability. The DFSA is calling this an ongoing priority, which is fair. But, client protection is so fundamental. Does it feel a bit concerning that this still needs to be a top-tier thematic review? Like maybe previous enforcement wasn't effective?
That's a great question, and I think it's actually more about the latter part of what you said. The market is just changing so incredibly fast. The core risk, as they define it in the letter, it's still unsuitable advice or mis-selling. No surprise there.
Which leads to financial loss for clients, loss of trust, the usual.
Yeah. Exactly. The usual, but on a bigger scale. The real reason for this review now is the market's evolution. The growth across all the advice sectors in the DIFC, plus the increasing complexity of the products and services being offered.
So when firms roll out these novel products, the standard suitability checks just can't keep up.
They lag behind, yeah. And that leads to probably the most important detail of this entire review. The DFSA is splitting its assessment into two very distinct areas. It's a huge tell for where their focus is shifting. They're looking at the design versus the operation in practice.
Okay, that distinction sounds critical. Design versus operation. Break that down for us.
It's massive. For years, a lot of compliance was about how good your policy manuals looked. That's the design.
The theory.
The theory, exactly. But a perfect policy is meaningless if the firm fails in the execution. So the first area, design, that's assessing the systems on paper, is the framework sound, both when you onboard a client and on an ongoing basis.
And the second area, operation and practice.
That's the acid test. How do those controls actually work in the real world, with all its chaos? Are the training programs effective? How robust is the quality check on actual client advice?
So we're really talking about the difference between a compliance framework that looks great for an auditor versus one that actually protects a client. Can you give us a quick example of where that operational failure might pop up, even with a great design?
Sure. Think about mandatory training for a new product. The firm's policy, the design, might require every advisor to take a course on a new structured product. Looks perfect on paper.
Right.
But if the operations team fails to log who completed the training, or if the internal checks on client files are only sampling, say, 2% of new business, well, the perfect design fails the moment a client is missold.
And the regulator is now specifically looking for that gap.
They're hunting for it. The failure isn't in the rule, it's in the execution.
And how will they find it? What's the methodology?
It's a really consistent three-step approach they're using across all three reviews this year. For suitability, they'll start with data they already have. Then, they'll send out a focused survey to the relevant firms. And only after they analyze all of that will they pick certain firms for on-site visits, where they can really see the operation in practice.
That makes sense. Reviewing files, interviewing staff.
Yep. And you should expect that data survey visit model to be the backbone of their supervision all through 2026.
Okay, so if suitability is about protecting the client, the second pillar, fund platforms, feels like it's about protecting the market from firms that are just growing too fast to handle it.
That's a perfect way to put it, yes.
This review is very targeted. It's aimed at firms with a fund platform endorsement. What's the main concern here with implementation and operationalization?
It's all about operational resilience. It's the classic scaling problem. When a firm, say, doubles its assets under management in a year, the compliance and operations infrastructure often gets left behind. It struggles to keep up. So the DFSA is targeting the specific areas of strain that threaten stability: governance, the variety of business models, and what they call high-growth characteristics.
Let's start with governance. What are they looking for there?
They're examining the platform's specific oversight. So how effective are the board and the committees? When a platform is in hypergrowth, the management information, the MI that leadership gets, can become outdated really fast. Or worse, it focuses only on sales numbers and ignores the red flags on the operational risk side.
So they want to see that risk oversight is proactive, not just a box-ticking exercise.
Exactly. And that it's getting good, timely data, not just last quarter's numbers.
Okay, and then they mentioned the different business models.
Right, because a variety of business models means a variety of risk profiles. A platform that's all retail wealth has a completely different risk structure from one that's mainly institutional.
And the DFSA wants to see that the controls are tailored to that specific model, not some generic off-the-shelf approach.
Precisely. Which leads right into their main concern, those high-growth characteristics. This is the real so what of success.
And where do firms usually fail when they're growing that fast?
Infrastructure. In-word infrastructure.
Yeah.
If your AUM doubles, your compliance team, your ops team, your IT team, they rarely double overnight.
Good point.
So the DFSA is checking 4 things that usually buckle first: financial resources, the robustness of systems and controls, the efficiency of internal processes, and the most common weak link of all staffing.
So if you onboard 10 new funds but only hire 1 new compliance person,
Your operational control environment is effectively halved. The regulator is making sure that the compliance engine is scaled up in proportion to the commercial success.
and their methodology will be similar, I assume. They'll start with the data they have, like the periodic fund return, before they start asking for more information or showing up on site.
That's the plan. The data's already there, so firms should be ready for that scrutiny right from the start of 2026.
All right, let's pivot to that third pillar, brokerage oversight. This is, a non-negotiable for protecting investors and maintaining market integrity. And the DFSA notes it's especially timely because of the growth we are seeing in the brokerage sector. So new firms coming in and existing ones expanding.
Indeed, and this isn't going to be a quick check-in. The DFSA says this review will be delivered as a series of structured deep dive engagement sessions across 2026.
That signals a much more sustained focus on the sector.
A very sustained focus, yeah.
And they've been very specific about the control areas they're assessing. 3 of them, all tied to the codes of business, the COB. Let's break those down.
Okay, the first is personal account dealing under COB 6.2. In today's market, this is critical. They're checking how firms monitor employees trading to themselves, and the risk isn't just basic insider trading anymore. It's conflicts of interest from, social media influence or front-running client orders. You need a system that catches patterns, not just single trades.
Then you have best execution, COB 6.4. That's always a challenge with market fragmentation.
It's constantly challenging. Best execution is not static. It requires this continuous diligence on where you're trading, pricing, speed. The DFSA will be looking at the actual quality of execution, not just the policy.
And finally, communication channels and record keeping. That's COB 6.7. This has to be a nightmare with remote work and all the different platforms people use.
It is the modern compliance headache. Absolutely. The DFSA is looking at how firms capture, monitor, and store records of all client communication and trading instructions.
So that includes things like encrypted messaging apps.
Everything. If you fail on SUP 6.7, you basically don't have the audit trail to prove you're compliant in the other 2 areas. It's the foundation.
But here's what I found fascinating. They mention a crucial exclusion. While they're detailing these three areas, they explicitly say that systems and controls for market abuse, specifically reporting suspicious transaction and order reports, or STORs, will not be part of this 2026 review.
Yes. That is a classic regulatory move. It's a deliberate absence that just speaks volumes.
It's not a free pass.
It is the opposite of a free pass. It's a very sharp, elevated warning. The DFSA immediately follows up by reminding firms that market abuse is a key priority for us and a continued area of focus. They're basically saying that submitting STORs is a fundamental, non-negotiable obligation. It has to be maintained at all times, regardless of any other review schedule. You suspect market abuse, you notify them immediately.
So the message for the brokerage sector is clear. Focus on those three Kobe areas for the thematic review, but you better be absolutely certain your market abuse and STOR systems are flawless because they are watching.
Very, very closely. And again, the methodology is the same. Data analysis, a focus survey, and then targeted on-site checks.
So what does this all mean for you if you're operating in the DIFC? We've covered the three pillars for 2026. You have suitability, which is the foundational defense of clients, then fund platforms, focused on making sure you can handle your own growth, and finally, brokerage oversight, ensuring market integrity.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the thread weaving through all three is the need for a firm's systems and controls to evolve faster than the market itself. The DFSA is essentially testing whether a firm's internal architecture, both its design on paper and its daily operation, is strong enough to support the kind of ambition and growth the DIFC is seeing. It's supervision catching up to success.
And for the firms that are facing these reviews, there is a silver lining. The letter promises that after each review, the DFSA will publish our key findings and hold outreach sessions. So the industry is going to get valuable, concrete benchmarks back from the regulator, which is really an opportunity in itself.
It is. And this raises, I think, a final important question for you, the listener, to think about for your own firm. We saw that suitability review focusing heavily on that gap between design and operation and practice. So given those high-growth characteristics they talked about with fund platforms, how often do compliance frameworks that look perfect on paper fail precisely because the human element understaffing, weak training, just can't handle the complexity of scaling at speed? I mean, what are the practical implications when the regulator shifts its focus from looking at your policy manuals to looking at the messy reality of your firm's daily operations?
That distinction, policy versus practice, that really is the core challenge for 2026. Regulatory vigilance is increasing right alongside commercial opportunity, and the pressure is on execution. We appreciate you taking this deep dive with us today. If you have any further questions about the details of the letter, the DFSA cited a contact person, Justin Baldacchino, the Managing Director of Supervision. Until next time, stay well-informed and resilient.